So after many false starts, I've been able to get the Humanoid to take a few steps. It's not perfect, nor anywhere near my level of satisfaction, but there are a number of milestones to feel good about. Firstly, a walking pattern is good, but there is still a matter of tuning the timing of the pattern sequences. Second, the compliance parameters are arriving just a bit too late. Finally, some tuning around how the walking task works in tandem with the balance task need to be done. Now, as a side note, along the way there has been a few comical attempts. Getting the timing and the math right can be tricky. I kid you not, I was playing dubstep when I recorded this one. Maybe we can start a robo hockey league. I swear, this one is skating. Not sure what happened here. Looks like he wants a banana. Fortunately, these were all trajectory simulations and no robots were harmed in the making. The hip joints definitely take a beating. During stepping, a single hip joint will take the full weight of the torso, arms, CPU backpack, and this is all in a single servo horn mount. It becomes a powerful wrenching force. Unlike many of the other joints, the hip is only supported on one end of the servo, where many of the other joints are affixed to both sides, where the opposite side is an idler bearing. The screw on the left hip really worked itself loose. Adding some thread locker helped a lot here, but it is going to continue to be the weakest link. Otherwise, the frame is very sturdy and rigid, but affixing the hip joint on both ends like the other joints is just not practical, as it would severely restrict the rotational range. But Eric from RobotShop and I are discussing some possible ways to greatly increase the hip joint rigidity using an extra support bearing. So we can see in this video the LEDs of the hip of the support leg are turning violet as soon as the stepping leg is lifted. I use this color to indicate that the servo entered active compliance mode, where it is still supplying torque, but it allows the servo to be back-driven. This is somewhat of a race condition during leg lift, where the new joint torque parameters are being sent just a little too late. The force dynamics algorithm computes these, and it's computing the proper torque, but not before weight is already transferred to the one leg. So it just needs to be reversed around where the torque parameters lead or anticipate the leg lift. So I added the arms to the limb configuration of the robot, which adds the manipulators as you see on the screen. Once limbs are added, the end effectors now get a target coordinate, and the humanoid dynamics works to maintain that position. So as we change the torso location, we can see the arms maintaining their position in world space. As useful as this is for grabbing or manipulating the world later, such as kicking the ball while balancing, I added some options to set limbs back to limp for things like normal walking sequences, though eventually I would like the arms to play a part in balance even while walking. In the last video, I had a single trajectory working using Orico's KDL library. I figured my next step was to have multiple trajectories working in tandem, such as walking and balancing. In my vision of things, I saw the breakdown of motion trajectories into different levels of complexity. First, from symbolic representations of motion, such as move to the fridge, and then down to the physical joint motions. In between, you have to plan around obstacles, compute footprint locations, apply walking patterns, and also compute the inverse kinematics of the inner joints. Plus, you still have to maintain balance through all of this. So you have the dynamics on top of it all. There are some existing ROS path planners and other tools, so I didn't want to reinvent everything. So I figured a way that I could break out all of these moving parts of motion into many small behavior controllers. And many of these could just be light wrappers around some existing tools. Now the behavior controllers would render into a timeline, which is then updated continuously as the robot walks or travels or whatnot. The behavior controllers would then render into a timeline that is updated continuously. Now that was the grand idea. In reality, I ended up down a bottomless rabbit hole for about 6 weeks. I could imagine the structures in my head, I could get it on paper, and I even got a C++ implementation to work, but it really had some complex interdependencies in the code. I just got to a point where I decided, if it's this hard to code an implementation, how is it going to be easy to use in practice? So I shelved that and I decided to go back to a more practical approach of walking until I at least gain a little more experience. Perhaps someday I will return and take another look.